Okay, welcome back. We're on page 437 talking about how DNS could be used as part of your documentation. The example in the book is kind of cool. They talk about, there's a thing where it says, NYC4 and GET1, where the first gigabit Ethernet is connected to the fourth port on the router, that kind of thing. That'd be kind of cool. And then, of course, your configuration database. So yes, I need a database of all my network devices. I need to know the vendor, the brand, the model, the serial number, even contact information for support, that kind of stuff. So if something goes down, I need to be able to say, hey, vendor. And then labeling. You might think labeling is kind of silly, but by God, let me just tell you a story. So you're in a crowded server room and somebody says, okay, I want you to go behind there and unplug the SQL Server, the power cord to the SQL Server database. Okay, so you crawl behind there. You have to step over cables and it's kind of dark. Maybe you got a flashlight with you and you're kind of kneeling with the back, in the corner of the room. And you go, okay, I got it. And so you pull the power cord on the guy and the guy says, wait, you just pulled the cord on the Exchange server. Oh my God, plug it back in, quick. Well, too late now, right? So you need labeling on the front of the rack saying what each one of these servers is and does. And you need labeling on the back. And I will even tell you, that was a real story, by the way. We would hang little tags on the power cords. This is the power cord, at the other end of the power cord. This is the power cord for the SQL server. And this is the power cord for the Exchange server. This is the power cord for the file server. Okay, just say. So yes, labeling. So a label gun, yeah, you need a label gun. Make sure you do the front and the back. Plus an asset tag. Maybe your asset tag is like a barcode or something, stuck on someplace so you can go around with a little gun and go and find all your devices. Okay, support on page 440. So do you do like level 1 and level 2 support yourself, or do you contract that out? That's not a discussion that we're going to have just yet. But a lot of people do contract out those kind of things. Maybe not inside the server room, but for normal customers. So the problem is, if you're going to have somebody outside, like go to your switches and see what's going on, that means some third-party contractor is going to have access to your system. And then what happens if the network is down? I mean, maybe that's the reason why the customer is calling, is the link is down, and therefore your remote people that you hired to do this can't get in and can't do anything. They keep talking about the self-service portal. That's kind of a recurring theme in this book. I don't necessarily agree with it. Where, people could go and see what the network status is. Maybe like a percent use. That would be a good one. Like, I have a network and it's 88% being used. I go, oh, okay, that's the reason why it's slow today. That kind of thing. So maybe they could just look at, I wouldn't want to give them any, if it had a self-service portal, I could give them the health of the network, okay? This particular segment is running at this speed, that kind of thing, but I certainly wouldn't want them to do anything there. That's just me. So diagnostic tools. So, we've run a command line tool called ipconfig, a very cool tool that allows you to see all the network configurations. Great. Network sniffers like Wireshark, where you can actually see what's going on inside the packet. Again, if you've taken a networking course, you probably heard about this. And then mapping the network, one called InMap. InMap will do an excellent job of scouting through your system and say, okay, I see 6 routers and here's how they're configured and here's all the stuff. Great. I will warn you though, this is relatively intrusive, and this is what an intruder would run to find out what's going on. So if you decide to run InMap in your company, you better be talking to people in advance saying, on Tuesday, I'm going to run InMap. Okay, you need to tell them in advance and perhaps even get their permission. By the way, our university is set up so that we do not want you doing things like that. So you cannot jack in and run InMap on the university network. They'll be very upset with you. Okay, just saying. And I want to skip the organizational structure thing because we're going to be talking about that later. And so now we're talking about network services on page 445. Obviously, there's some security-related things. There's intrusion detection systems. Yes, okay. These are things that could detect and perhaps even respond to breaches in the security. And they have both wireless and wired and host-based. So there's a host-based version and a wired version and a wireless version. And then voice over IP, a big thing nowadays. It used to be, back in the old days, since I love saying that, you contracted with the phone company and they set up a little, branch exchange kind of a thing, a PBX. So, the admin person would be like the operator, so to speak. You call up, how can I direct your call? And now it's all done with IVS systems, voice over stuff. And no one wants to pay for the phone company to put in a PBX, and no one wants to pay for that long distance services and all the rest of that stuff. So, everyone does voice over IP because there's the cost savings to it. Okay, we have reached the end of this chapter, so stay tuned for the next video.